Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I want to talk about this new MUDs bundle that Cryptic has come out of nowhere with, and it is the MUDs Secret Intel Bundle. This comes only 2 to 3 weeks after the past MUDs bundle release, so they don't usually put them out this close together. Let me just get straight to the point though and tell you who should even care about this bundle. The only people that should really be interested in this bundle are people that want one of these ships account wide, or more importantly, people that want to really heavily follow the Torp meta, because this pack seems to be very targeted towards the Torp meta. If you don't care about the ships and you don't care about the Torp meta, then this bundle does not apply to you. I will tell you right now. If you don't care about Torps, you can turn this video off and you don't have to watch any more about this because it literally does not apply to you. None of these ships have anything that really excels in the energy weapon department or for tanking, so you can move on and save your money. Now, if you do care about Torps or the Torp meta, the 3 ships that I would be choosing from this are number 1, the Nequej Intel Battlecruiser, number 2, the Sona Intel Battlecruiser, and number 3, the Section 31 Intel Science Destroyer. So let me also just state that you're not buying this bundle for any of the ships, okay? You're buying it for the traits that come off the ships, because none of these ships are really exceptional. They can all perform well, they can all do any content the game has in it, but to be fair, any tier 5 ship or above can do pretty much any content this game has in it. So you're not buying these ships for the ship, you're buying them for the trait. Let's start off with the most important to me, and that is the Nequej Intel Battlecruiser. I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over the stats, but I'll have them all linked down below if you want to check them out. It's a 5-3 weapons layout. It's got a lot of intel seating. The Nequej is unique in that it has 6 bridge officer stations, but to make up for that, you have 2 ensigns, 2 lieutenants. It's not the best layout we've ever had, that's for sure. Now, the reason people go for this ship is the Ceaseless Momentum trait. So if I hop in game, Ceaseless Momentum, it stacks up to 5 times when you fire torpedoes, and that will give you up to 25% bonus kinetic damage and 25 kinetic damage resistance rating. So that damage boost is pretty huge. That damage boost basically means that after you fire a handful of torpedoes, your kinetic abilities are getting half of the damage boost from attack pattern alpha all the time. So that is really huge for some builds. You might run into some situations at the extreme high end where your Cat 2 is heavily saturated, and I know some people have even done record runs without Ceaseless on, but I think for most people, Ceaseless is very good to have on. It also reduces the recharge time of your torpedoes, and that's pretty big. Now, the next ship I want to talk about is the Sona Intel Battlecruiser. This ship is also 5-3. It's got an Intel-focused layout. It does have a command seat on it, but it's only a lieutenant command, which means it's pretty much worthless. The reason people go for this trait is for this ship is the Subspatial Warhead trait. If I pop open that trait here, when you fire a high yield or a transport warhead, it spawns in a subspatial tear. On the parse, it'll show up as isolatic tear, and that will chase your target and do a lot of damage to them, and any foes are within 1 kilometer of them. So if you look at any of the Torp, any parses for a Torp build at a high level, you're going to see isolatic tears on there as a damage source. If I go in and pop open, let's say my record. If I go and look at the report here, it usually shows up under pets. One of the isolatic tears will show up here too, but most of it shows up under pets. You'll see isolatic tears in my infected run did 137k. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to pop open the Tribble parses I did. So I'm going to pop open the first test I did with Unite Earth Defense Force vessel. And I want to just show what the potential of subspatial warheads is against a target that has infinite HP. Okay? So keep that in mind. This type of performance will not happen on holodeck against, most targets. This was a triple test against a single or a group of targets that had infinite HP, so these tears could sit on them. But isolated tears really stack up over time. So in this DPS test I did, which I probably have the video for too, just to give some more reference. Yeah, I literally sat here just shooting them, testing the damage output, and you see the isolated tears doing just so much damage there. And if I go back to the parse, we literally see that out of the 6,410,000 damage I did on that test map against the infinite HP targets, the isolated tears did a third of the damage. More than a third of the damage, okay? They are insanely powerful, and while that type of performance is not realistically going to ever happen on the holodeck, because we don't have targets that live that long, you can hopefully see why subspatial warheads is just so important for Torp builds. It does so much damage, and against targets that are alive a long time, it really adds up. So subspatial warheads, very, very powerful, okay? I hope after me looking at those numbers, you can see why it's such a core part of Torp builds. Now, the other ship that I'm recommending here is the Section 31 Intel Science Destroyer. This ship isn't anything special. It's one of the science destroyers where it has a psi mode and tac mode you can swap between. If you're in psi mode, you get a commander psi, and you have a secondary deflector. If you swap it over to tac mode, you get a commander tac, and your commander psi goes down to a lieutenant commander, and you then get the experimental weapon. It's actually the ship I'm in right now, just to demonstrate. So right now I'm in psi mode. If I go to tac mode, the wings fold down. It's a really neat little animation, and I lose access to the secondary deflector. I get this commander tac. So if I swap back to psi mode, you see how I lose the commander tac, and I regain the commander psi seat. So that's a nice little feature of the ship. If that's something that interests you, then you might want to consider it for that. But the real reason to get this ship is the trait Exodus Active Probat. So I have a video going over this entire mechanic earlier this year. I'll have this link down below. But Exodus Active Probat, when you use it with Intel Team and 2 copies of Intel Team and then the Fresh from R&R personal space trait, you can really have high survivability in solo environments. So some of you may have seen my solo ISE videos or Hive Space Elite videos, and with these solo runs, I'm going in with very little survivability, okay? And I am surviving throughout this entire thing with the only heal I have on this build being an Ox to Sif. So just let that sink in. I'm doing a solo Hive Space Elite utilizing this Exodus Active Probat trait, which, let me be clear, does not make you immune to death. It just massively increases your stealth with Intel Team to a point that to a lot of targets you're essentially cloaked. And if they have something else they can target, they will target that. So Exodus Active Probat, insanely powerful. Like, I've got this video up here. I'll link this in the description too if you want to check it out. This is a recent solo HSE I did. The current time record, I believe, at 4.5 minutes, but I'm doing this, I'm not dying. I did have one close point here somewhere in the run where I had to back off and just heal for a second. But with this, I can get really aggressive and just focus on doing damage rather than trying to survive. There are other ways to do solo runs, especially for Hive and Infected. There are other approaches that people have done. But with regards to completing the content solo as fast as possible, I really believe Exodus Active Probat is needed to help with survivability. It just makes the solo run so much easier in my experience. So that covers the 3 ships that I'm recommending. Now let's check out the one that I'm recommending you don't grab. And that is the Elachi Sheshar Intel Dreadnought Cruiser. This is the same ship as the Command version that was released in the last Muds bundle, except it has a Lieutenant Commander Intel seat rather than a Lieutenant Commander Command. It has the exact same trait, so when you fire off a high yield, you'll get a free high yield one afterwards, but only once every 30 seconds. If this trait were lowered, so it had a lower cooldown, then it would be more valuable, but at once every 30 seconds, it holds very little value in the current meta. If it had like a 5 or 10 second cooldown, it'd be better, but this 30 seconds just kills it. It's very hard for a trait like this to compete in the current like meta trait lineup for Torp builds. So, you know, all of these ships, all of 4 of these are very capable. If you really want one of these ships and it's what you want to fly at endgame, you know, it's going to do really well at endgame. Like, I may say a ship is bad, others may say a ship is bad, but at the end of the day, any T5 ship or above can be built well enough to do pretty much any content the game has in it, okay? It just, so keep that in mind when we're talking about performance. But really, if you're spending this type of money, you're buying this pack for the traits, not the ships. So once again, to recap, Nikwej Intel Battlecruiser for Ceaseless Momentum, Sona Intel Battlecruiser for Subspatial Warheads, Section 31 Intel Science Destroyer for Exodus Active Probat. And to also just illustrate more or demonstrate more of the value of Subspatial Warheads and Ceaseless Momentum, if I go on the builds Discord and I start looking at Torp builds, you want to know what traits I see all the time? Ceaseless Momentum, Subspatial Warheads. Ceaseless Momentum, Subspatial Warheads. If I go down to other Torp DPS builds, if I start scrolling up here, Ceaseless Momentum, Subspatial Warheads. Do you see a theme here? Almost every single build that is posted on here has that trait combo. Everyone definitely has Subspatial Warheads. Some people do things where they try and get away without Ceaseless Momentum, and some people have had success with that, but it is generally easier, from my experience, for a lot of people to just have Ceaseless Momentum on. So, literally, you can go through, look on the builds Discord, and you will see the large, overwhelming majority of these posted Torp builds all have those 2 traits. They are core parts to Torp builds in the current meta. So if you want to build a Torp build, and you want to build them on more than one character, get the pack, get the 3 that I recommended. But that is it for today. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll get back to you when I can. And I will see you guys next time. I should have a support build video coming out within the next few days. See you guys around.